are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information.
Welcome to People It's Good to Know. I'm your host, John Davis. Tonight, we're fortunate to have with us two of our newly elected city officials. We have school committee member Aaron Bennett and city councilor at large Nick Lavoie. Aaron and Nick, thanks for being here this evening. I appreciate you coming out tonight to introduce yourself to some of the people in the public.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, one of the things I tend to like to start with is to get a little bit of background, about, how you grew up, where you came from and all of that. So I don't know which one of you would like to go first, but feel free to tell us a little bit about, your life story.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. I don't like to talk very much. So I grew up in Attleboro, and I went to Attleboro schools, and I have two kids. One is 15 and one is 17. They're both at the high school. I'm extremely proud of the new high school, and I always sort of had it in the back of my mind that school committee would be a place that I could do some good for Attleboro. My dad was a career teacher at Attleboro High School, and so when Steve Withers announced he was not running for re-election, that's about this time last year when I heard that and thought that it was something I should consider doing. So that's my background. I work at Clark University in Worcester, and I live next to my parents on Wamsutter Road in Ward 3.
Oh, that's good. And Nick?
My name's Nicholas Lavoie. I am 28 years old, and I'm a lifelong resident here, small business owner here, and I kind of just have always been involved in something, youth sport coaching, going to the meetings and just watching them, and so that developed the passion about, I think, 5 years ago now, where I ran against yourself and Councilor Waterman.
Yep.
And I never ran again after that up until the past November. I kind of just wanted to feel out when the time was going to be right, when I felt best prepared, and over the course of the last 5 years, I just kind of made my life better, improved my business, and thought that I'd give my best foot forward now if I got in the race. And thankfully, I think the people of Attleboro agreed, voted for me, and I was sworn in on the 2nd.
That's great. Now, part of the purpose of this show is to allow people out in the community to get to know, as we call it, people it's good to know. The people in our community that make a difference and do things. One of the things that I've picked up already this evening is, basically how humble both of you guys are. Because I know that you're both involved in a lot of community activities and have done a tremendous number of things in the course of your life that you've just, skimmed over. Like your involvement in youth sports. You've both been very actively involved in youth sports over the years, correct?
Yeah, well, that's how I know Nick. We coached a football team, and we've coached a bunch of youth basketball teams together.
Coach currently.
We're coaching currently. Yep. We're coaching the 7th, 8th grade, just a recreational basketball team, just kind of for fun, And my son's coaching with us too, which is a real blast.
Oh, that's got to be nice.
And our buddy Tim Moore, and so we just sort of, that's how we got to know each other, and so that's kind of why I thought it'd be fun for us to do this together, because we sort of both political neophytes. I don't think that either of us has giant political aspirations to conquer the world or anything like that. At least I don't. I'm just trying to. Nick might conquer the world. I'm just trying to do a little bit of good stuff for Attleboro while I can.
That's great. And so, it's been about a month since you two have each been sworn into your office. How have things gone so far, and have you enjoyed it, and what have you experienced?
Yeah.
I'd take it away, I guess. Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. Big learning curve, right? And you're familiar, obviously, is it's a second language, learning the procedures and how to go about introducing things or responding to things on the floor. But I attended enough meetings to get the hang of it, and I feel like I integrated well. Can't speak there well, but it's been really good. Honestly, I thought I'd have a slower start with licensing committee, but we got some new licenses in, and we had a couple of constituent concerns regarding that. So it's been a busy start, busy first month. So it's been good, though, and fun. And looking forward to another year and 11 months, and then hopefully far more after that.
Oh, that's good. And
Same here. I really felt like I started the learning process shortly after pulling nomination papers, because I didn't want to show up and have a different understanding of what the job was, right? So I started going to meetings and watching them and just picking stuff up, and then after the election, I really started like delving into it, and I met with David Sawyer and with Lori Regan and a lot of the other higher officials in the school administration for an hour each. I spent a substantial amount of time just getting to understand the nature of what they do and where their pain points are, and I found that they all have pain points, and they all have areas that need improvement, and there's not a lot the school committee can do for any of those particular areas, because most of them are only solved by money. But having reasonable people to listen, pay attention, understand what they're talking about, and make reasonable suggestions is
Right.
something that I think is something we can do.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you make an important point there is there's a really limit to how much one individual can make a difference. But we need to have a collective group of rational people to listen to the public and make the key decisions that we can make to make a
Right.
difference. As you said, almost everything seems to come down to money, and the longer you're involved in local politics, the more you realize that 99% of everything comes down to money in one way or another. Are there any specific issues related to, say, the school committee right now that you're concerned about or actively involved with?
Well, they're formulating a new policy on cell phone usage in the schools. That's fairly interesting. There was some outreach with the students. The kids obviously feel that cell phones are a constitutional right and they should be able to be on them any minute. Some of the kids do.
Right.
Most of the kids are rational, but they did a lot of research and a lot of work with the kids to get forums and find out what their perspectives are. There was the administration's impressive. They reached out to parents. They had a public forum for parents, and they're just we just saw a draft of the policy, and what they're looking to do is to eliminate cell phones as a distractive influence during class time. So I'm interested in seeing where that
The important thing is that it was a collaborative effort. They actually included the opinions of all the players.
Right.
That's
Now, they may
good.
not all like the result that they come up
Right.
with, because that's part of the job of the schools. Not always do the students love everything that the administration decides.
Well, that's
right?
part of democracy, right? and Nick, now you are the chair of the license committee.
Yep.
And so, what things are you hoping to accomplish in your first term on the city council? And I say first term because you're a young
Yeah.
guy. I suspect you'll be around for a while.
I appreciate it. Well, with licensing, it's a little different, right? It's kind of, you can only assist those who apply, things like that. But in terms of what I hope to accomplish is really just to help make sure that we're going to be financially wise. This is going to be probably the most challenging term that the council and the city's faced in a good substantial amount of time. It's just so many projects coming up, right? And we see state budget cuts that came down already. We don't know what the future holds in terms of more cuts. So we just have to be sure that we're being wise on our end. We're balancing books properly. We're not overspending in areas that we don't need to overspend in, and that we're starting to put money aside for capital improvements. You see any municipal building meeting you watch, right? It's the senior center, police and fire joint public compound, and whether it's going to be one or two buildings, whether we're going to buy the property or we have the property available. So just every conversation had is just more dollar signs in a different area, and so we just need to be sure that we're doing our best part to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, the funny part of that is, when I was first elected to the council 25 years ago, we were talking about all of those buildings and more at that point. And some of them are just like the senior center coming around to actually, hopefully, going to happen in the very near future.
Exactly.
Now, as you said, you ran in the special election with myself and Councilor Waterman 5 years ago. What was it, though, that got you interested in local government?
So I attended UMass Lowell, obviously after high school, and I'd gotten into, I went for criminal justice, so you had to get electives, and I went into counterterrorism, and then with that I also picked up political science and international relations. So I started, watching a lot of forums on how different countries interacted and different governing bodies interacted, and just kind of all those gears working as one. So I was always fascinated. And then when I had come back to Attleboro, after I was done with college, it was kind of just still an interest. I would watch the meetings online. Then I went to a couple meetings, and from there it was like, okay, how do I get involved? And I went to the local GOP and just, they were like, oh, there's a race coming. Maybe you could run in it. We don't really have a ton of people kind of throwing their name in. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try. And so I went in there not knowing a thing about it. I didn't put in like a candidate statement in the paper. I didn't know how all the local level things worked. But yeah, I would say that the passion's been going from there. And not to say that I'll ever want to be involved in federal politics or something like that, but I think the way that so many different people from so many different walks of lives can all interact for one better goal.
Absolutely.
And 8 different paths to get there and different ideas, but at the end of the day, at some point there will be one concise path on how to do it. And for me, it's always impressive, and I do correlate it with sports a lot and different coaches, different mindsets, but you're going to have one path that comes out in the end, and it might not work, but at least everyone agreed to it.
Right, and I think that's a great approach. Aaron, so you were saying how you thought about the school committee for several years, because your family and yourself have always been involved in education. How did you find the whole campaigning for office experience?
I really, really liked it. I really liked knocking doors. I know it sounds weird, but I found that getting out in the morning with a list of names and a plan, and going out and knowing that I was going to knock on these 50 doors in the next 4 or 5 hours or whatever it was, right? At least 1 or 2 times in every trip there was a conversation that rung my bells, and I walked home saying, that's why I did this, regardless of the outcome of the election. That conversation with that person was worth having no matter what, and I really liked it. I'm not wicked eager for 2 years from now to do it again, but I know I will. Right? I know when it's time to do it. I'll just get right back in the saddle. I liked it. It was fun. Yep. I'm glad it was over, but it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, as you get older, there are very few ways in life in which you meet as many new people as you can through politics. Yeah. It's almost like going away to college and meeting a whole new group of people. Nick, so you've had 2 opportunities to campaign. How did you enjoy this campaign?
I loved this one. I was more nervous this time around than before. Before, I didn't really feel confident, and I just kind of, I knew I was in a touch like to yourself, as I knew I was going up against some bigger people in the community, people who have a ton of experience, and I was 24, I believe, years old at the time, so I didn't really have a whole lot, like, in terms of experience and everything, so I wasn't overly confident. This time, I felt confident in, the amount of doors I knocked, the response I was getting, the literature I sent out, being on the radio, so I was more confident in the sense of I put my best foot forward, but I was far more nervous and did I do enough, and would the people correlate to the things that I said? And I think Aaron can touch on that. We were both nervous to each other.
Well, that's one of the funniest things I always hear from political people. No matter what office it is, they always wonder, did I do enough? Even the ones who take it to the limit.
It's like this. Say you play an entire football game, and then 4 days later, you find out whether you won or not, right? Like, here you are, the day of the election. There's not a single solitary thing you can do at that point to influence the outcome of that election. So you're constantly thinking, geez, last Saturday when it was pouring out and I said, oh, I'll just stay home. Should I have gone out and knocked out another 5 doors then, right? It's constant because it's a strange game that I had never played before, so, And
along the line, how did it affect your families? How did your families and friends get involved, and how did they take it all?
Well, I mean, my wife is very supportive. My kids were excited. They didn't go out and knock doors with me or anything like that, but, I had my son run around and help me put up signs here and there, but, yeah, they were supportive, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think my parents are supportive in everything I do, but I think this time they were far more supportive, knowing how serious I was and what I was investing into it. So they were helpful every step of the way. And my wife moved here from Connecticut. We were newly married. I got married in June.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And so she was she hadn't voted. I think she voted once in her life. She's not overly involved in politics, but I mean, she was all in, and she was putting out literature and helping edit things, and I mean, she loved it, and it was cool because her family got to see another side where they equally they didn't know anyone involved in politics locally or state level, so they were really fascinated, and so it was just really cool to see everyone support you and how interesting it can be to an outside person.
Yeah, and I assume that most of your close friends are probably roughly the same age as you. And were there a lot of your friends who took an interest because you stepped up to run?
Yeah, my friends are always very supportive, on my business level and just in my political level. So they're, helping share things and holding signs and coming out. And it's, your closer circle is always going to be your biggest supporter. And you can't thank them enough because it's almost like the term unsung heroes. It's like, they do so much, but everyone just sees you win. But yeah, my friends have always been very supportive, and, equally can't thank them enough either.
Now, we were touching that you work at a university here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I work at Clark University up in Worcester.
You're involved in technology?
Yeah, I'm a manager of system administration in the IT department. So I don't help people find the right mouse button or anything like that. We stay in the basement and keep the servers running that the university needs in order to function. And
I imagine some of those skills are kind of transferable to the role you now have on the school committee.
So it's interesting. There are a few things that I am professionally able to chime in on. Right, I don't have a master's in education. I don't know the ins and outs of special education. I'm not a curricular designer, but occasionally something will come up that's technology oriented, like in the conversation about phones and stuff. There are areas there that I understand. I understand enterprise Wi-Fi and how to do that sort of thing. So yeah, that is an area of expertise that I do bring to the table. I'm pleased with that.
And now, Nick, you're a small businessman, and I mean, I've always advocated for more business people to get involved in local government, and so it was nice to see that someone who has some business experience was interested in getting involved. So far, have there been any of your sort of business skills that you've had the opportunity to apply yet, or?
Yeah, I feel just understanding how to connect with people that you've never met or come across before. Just picking up a phone and not being shy on how to break the ice and how to speak to someone. So when I get like a constituent call in or someone, maybe they're kind of irate over something that happened in their ward or somewhere in the city, it's good to have the experience and the de-escalation capability to kind of just navigate and really kind of play both sides and settle them down, but not totally tell them they're 100% right. So I think it's definitely a great attribute to have, and it's helped me a lot so far.
I've noticed online on social media a lot of times that you've helped answer people's questions and calm them down when they had understanding about things. And one of the things that I've observed in the short time I've known you two guys, that it seems like you really enjoy interacting with people. Right? I mean,
sure. I don't understand why you would choose to enter local politics if you didn't enjoy interacting with people, right? There's many other ways to help the city of Attleboro that don't involve getting people who you don't know to like you, right? And like, you could get appointed to boards, you can volunteer at the library. There's all kinds of things. For me, I really like meeting people, and I like interacting with people, and so Right. I don't know how else to put it. That's kind of what makes it go around, right?
No, I agree.
Nick and I are akin in that regard.
And I think that in some ways that's what separates local government from what we see in Washington, is that when people have a problem around here.
More than that.
Well, but the face-to-face, personal, anyone out there can pick up their phone and call either one of you guys about a problem and know that they're going to get a response.
Right. I mean, it's true at the state level too. If you email Jim Hawkins or you email Adam Scanlon, I don't think you're going to get a response back really promptly. I think that we're lucky to have local legislatures who are so engaged.
Absolutely. In our community, we've been, and for many, many years, we've been very fortunate with the people we've had representing us from both political parties.
Sure.
Which, you know,
John Lepper
Yep.
was an Attleboro institution and a really good Congress.
Yeah. I mean, and before him, Steve Carroll had been our state
Yep.
rep for 20-odd
Legend.
years.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things we have here in Attleboro is, you know, a diversity of people who get involved in government, and both political parties, liberal, conservative, and of all different backgrounds. And I think that's what makes our community stronger. How do
I
you feel
agree.
about that?
Well, I mean, I think one of the real strengths of Attleboro is our nonpartisan elections. And everybody knows that people belong to political parties. I don't happen to belong to one, and I don't see that changing. But you don't really, when you go to vote, you don't have to look and say, well, that's a Democrat. How can I vote for a Democrat? Or how can I vote for a Republican or whatever? You have to make a values-based decision based on the information that you have. And I think that's a strength for Attleboro.
Yep. And oftentimes at a local election, you've actually met the individual. Or if you haven't met the individual, you're probably wondering, why haven't I met this individual?
If they haven't knocked your door, you're wondering, well, what did I do wrong? Why didn't you even knock on my door?
Absolutely. So, there any topics you'd like to share with the people out there about, you know, things you might like them to know about you and the things you're involved with?
You know, I play pickleball at the YMCA. Everyone who wants to, who is no longer athletic enough to play tennis, pickleball is a great place for guys like me with bad knees and a bad back to run around and have some fun.
They say that's incredibly growing. That more and more.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
And Nick?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I just try to enjoy the outdoors a bit, and you know, I like fishing, obviously during spring, summer. Not so much now.
You're not ice fishing?
No, I'm a little heavier to trust the ice that much. But yeah, no, I just try to enjoy the outdoors and spend time with, you know, my dog, my wife, family. Pretty family oriented, and just really just kind of enjoy the time I have when I'm not, you know, working or doing something on the city level. Just really appreciating the time and the environment and things like that.
Right. Now, you're both lifelong residents of Attleboro.
Correct.
And we've seen in our lifetimes, we've all seen tremendous amount of change here. What are some of the things that have changed in your lifetime here in the community that you like, and some of the things that maybe you don't think is as good as it once was?
Well, I miss Stony Lake. I miss Locust Valley golf course. It was nice to be able to go there and play a whole round of golf for $10.
Yeah.
I miss the open space. When I drive around with my kids, I'm constantly being like, I can't believe they built houses there. I can't believe they built houses here. Where all these houses come from, right? But I mean, I also like the change in the demographic and the influx of new people. I think is a good thing for Attleboro. So.
I would agree with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is tons of good things happening at the development level. More so, I would say, bigger apartment structures as opposed to a ton of houses everywhere. I agree there. I love to see the revitalization of existing commercial spaces and industrial spaces. So
I love that there's places to eat now. I remember 20 years ago thinking there's only like Bliss Brothers and Tex Barry's and a couple of Chinese food places, right? Now there's a huge diversity of really good, like the Burgundian is awesome. There's just so many interesting new places to go and to eat in Attleboro. I never thought we'd see it. I never thought we'd have a brewery in Attleboro, and there's a really good brewery, right? Like, it's cool.
Yep. I mean, a lot of people sometimes, I think, are unaware of some of the amenities we have here, and we don't do always a great job of self-promotion. I mean, Attleboro has a lot to offer that other communities would love to have. And I think, you know, again, I think we're fortunate to have people like yourself who are actively involved in a lot of activities and aren't afraid to you know, try out some of these new businesses. Because as we know, like with restaurants can come and go if people aren't willing to give them a shot.
Right. What is it? A large percentage of restaurants close within the first year of their being open. You know, and so if we want to see, I believe if you want to see Attleboro be a certain way, then make it that way, right? If you want cool restaurants to happen in Attleboro, then go to them and eat and spend your money there, right? Or whatever it is you want.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And again, Nick, you've always promoted small business here in the community, and I know you're someone who's always stressed and encouraged people to shop local and to frequent local businesses.
Yeah, 70% of every dollar spent locally will stay local. So I mean, that's, you know, when you're shopping on Amazon or you're shopping on any other large conglomerate, a small fraction of your dollar is going to come back to the local community. So when you're shopping local, you're feeding local families, and then they're going to go out and shop local and feed other local families, contribute to the tax bracket. It's just, I mean, you're almost foolish not to shop locally, because it's, you know, you're getting your best bang for your buck on many different levels. So.
Yep. And I think that reaches an important point that, you know, in a small community like ours, everything that goes on affects each and every one of us. And things build on themselves. You know, if we want the downtown, people always talk about, boy, if the downtown was only what it was 50 years ago. But we can make it that or better. But it's up to us to actively participate.
Yep.
Yeah, they need to be a place to park your car. If they want to revitalize downtown, they need to fix the parking situation. That's my, and I'm not a city council guy. That's for my friend to worry about. But that's my opinion: is fix the parking, and then the businesses will come right back. Because there's stuff to sell, and there's people who want to buy it. But if there's nowhere to park your car, you're just going to keep flying right on by and say, "I'm just going to order that on Amazon when I get home."
So we're getting towards the end of the show. Time goes so quickly, but are there some things you'd like to share with the public before we wrap up here this evening?
Yeah, I said to Nick on the day after the election, I look forward to spending the next 2 years asking you for money. I will reiterate that the Attleboro schools are in the bottom 10% in two critical metrics for city spending. That is both the net spending over net minimum, and the per capita spending are both in the bottom 10%. And I understand that times are tight and there's not a lot of money to go around, but I think that we can probably do better than being in the bottom 10% in both of those categories.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's only 4 communities in the state that are in the bottom 10% of both of those categories.
Correct. It's a very, very select group, and I think we can leave that group and do better.
Absolutely. And Nick, what would you like to say?
How do I follow up that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I just want to stress to people too that watch this, and you know, to really try to take a step back and understand the challenges any city can face, small, large. You know, you're balancing a very tight budget, and when bigger items come in and other budgets want to grow, it's you know, hard to navigate that. But you really should take the time and come out to the meetings and pay attention and really question some of the things that your body and the people you elect are doing. You know, I think years in the past, many amounts of money were just approved, and there's no real constraint to that. And I think you should really, and it's not a conservative, non-conservative point of view, I think you should really just take into account that you want people in there that are going to watch the dollars and where they go, right? It's the same as balancing a checkbook or a budget at home.
It's not that different from household spending.
Exactly,
you either buy it or you don't, right?
Yeah,
You need to think it
making
through.
sure we buy what we can afford, and that we have a rainy day fund and an emergency fund. If you know, most good financial advisors will tell you to have a 6-month emergency fund in the household. So, you know, as a city, that correlates to a much larger emergency fund that we should be having.
Oh, that's great. And I think this evening we've talked about a lot of really good, interesting stuff, and I'm sure it's allowed the community to see a little bit about each of you. I want to thank both of you for being here this evening, and I look forward to, you know, the next couple of years and watching, you know, what you do in office, and I'm sure you guys are both going to be around for a long time to come. And thanks again for being here this evening. And thank you for tuning in to People It's Good to Know. There are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information